This week, I showed three different situations: a lawyer, a student, and a hiring system. Different people, different decisions, same mistake. On this channel, I track the same judgment error showing up again and again when people use AI. None of these cases failed because AI went rogue. None of them failed because the technology broke. They failed because something looked like understanding and humans trusted it. Today isn't about a new AI failure. It's about why that trust feels natural and why it keeps happening whenever prediction looks like expertise. Humans don't evaluate information in a vacuum. We use shortcuts. And one of the strongest shortcuts we have is this: confidence signals competence. When someone explains something clearly, structures their thoughts well, and speaks without hesitation, we assume they know what they're talking about. That isn't stupidity. It's a reasonable rule of thumb. In human communication, confidence usually does correlate with knowledge. Someone who understands a subject can explain it smoothly. Someone who doesn't tends to hesitate, qualify, or backtrack. So over time, we learn to trust the smooth explainer. That habit works until it doesn't, because AI breaks the relationship between confidence and understanding. An AI system is always confident, not because it knows, but because confidence is a pattern it learned from human language. It has seen millions of explanations, millions of answers, millions of authoritative sounding responses. So it learned how certainty looks, not how truth works. When the lawyers saw those legal citations, they weren't random strings of text. They had case names, years, court districts, proper formatting, everything a real citation is supposed to have. And that's the key point. The AI didn't just give an answer. It produced every signal the lawyer associates with research that's already been checked. So the lawyer's brain did what human brains do. It saw the signal, professional formatting, and inferred the substance, checked reliable information. But the substance wasn't there. Only the signal was. This is the core of the problem. It's the same pattern showing up across different uses of AI. This is the pattern I keep documenting, where signals replace understanding. AI has learned to reproduce the signals of expertise without possessing expertise itself. It doesn't just sound confident. It sounds correct. And once something sounds correct, we stop interrogating it. Not because we're careless, not because we're lazy, but because, in normal human contexts, work that looks like this has already been checked. That's why the lawyer didn't verify the cases. The output didn't look like a draft. It didn't look uncertain. It didn't look unfinished. It looked like work that had already passed scrutiny. And that is the trap. AI doesn't persuade us by being right. It persuades us by looking like something that would be right if a human had produced it. And once that signal fires, judgment quietly hands over control. There's a second reason this keeps happening. It's not just that AI sounds confident. It's that AI outputs look finished. And when something looks finished, we stop working on it. That's not a character flaw. That's how humans conserve effort. We're constantly deciding where to spend attention. And one of the biggest signals we use is completeness. Drafts invite scrutiny. Rough notes invite questions. Messy work invites revision. Finished work doesn't. That's what the student saw. The essay had an introduction, clear paragraphs, transitions, a conclusion that tied everything together. Everything a completed essay is supposed to have. So the student's brain did what brains do. It treated the work as done. They probably read it. They may have changed a few words. They may have fixed a sentence that sounded odd. But they didn't interrogate the reasoning. Not because they didn't care, but because the essay didn't look like it needed interrogation. And this is where people misunderstand the trap. Most of the time, the danger isn't that someone never looked at the output. It's that they looked at it, and the surface signs told them it was safe. The same thing happened with the lawyer. Same mechanism, different domain. Those citations didn't look provisional. They didn't look uncertain. They didn't look like placeholders. They looked like the final stage of work, like something produced after research, checking, and verification. So the brain quietly skips the step it thinks has already happened. Checking. And here's the crucial point. AI doesn't just give you an answer. It gives you an answer that looks like it has been reviewed. Perfect grammar, clean structure, confident tone. All the surface signals of quality control, without the process behind them. But there is no quality control. The system never checks its own work. It doesn't verify sources. It doesn't test logic. It doesn't notice contradictions. It doesn't stop and ask, does this actually make sense? So when humans treat the output as finished, they quietly remove the one step that actually matters. Verification. And this isn't dramatic delegation. No one says, I'm giving up responsibility. It happens quietly. The human sees something that looks complete and assumes the hard work has already been done. That's why the errors slip through. Not because the AI suddenly failed, but because no one went back and asked the boring question, is this actually true? AI didn't replace judgment. It just made judgment feel unnecessary. And that's the trap. There's a third reason humans trust AI so easily. It isn't confidence, and it isn't completeness. It's neutrality. Machines feel objective, and that feeling is powerful. They don't have emotions. They don't get tired. They don't have opinions. They don't sound defensive or uncertain. So when a system produces an answer calmly, without hesitation or qualification, it feels impartial, above bias. That's why the hiring system felt trustworthy. Humans know they're biased. We know our judgments are influenced by experience, preference, mood. So when a system ranks candidates automatically, it feels like we've removed the problem. We've made the process fair. But that feeling is an illusion, because the system didn't invent a new standard. It learned patterns from old decisions. Those past hiring decisions were made by humans, with preferences, with assumptions, with biases, visible or not. So the system didn't eliminate bias. It encoded it. Then it applied those patterns to new candidates, producing rankings that felt neutral but were actually reflections of the past. And because the system didn't explain itself, people trusted the output even more. There was no argument to challenge, no reasoning to interrogate, just a list. Ranked, ordered, clean. That presentation matters. When a human gives an opinion, we ask questions. When a machine gives a ranking, we assume it's the result of calculation. But the system wasn't calculating merit. It was matching shapes. If previous hires shared certain words, schools, hobbies, or experiences, those features gained weight, not because they caused success, but because they appeared in the data. The system didn't know why those patterns existed. It couldn't tell correlation from causation. It couldn't explain what it was optimizing for. It just produced an answer that looked neutral, even though the process behind it wasn't. And neutrality is persuasive, especially when we don't understand the process behind it. That's why people trusted the rankings. Not because they were proven correct, but because they didn't look personal. The machine felt detached, unemotional, objective. But objectivity isn't about tone. It's about method. And the method here was still prediction, just hidden behind a calm interface. So where does that leave us? AI produces confidence. It produces structure. It produces neutrality. And humans respond to those signals the way we always have, by trusting them. That dynamic isn't going to disappear. The systems will improve. The specific failures you saw this week: fake citations, collapsed reasoning, unexplained rankings, those will get caught more often. Tools will add verification layers. Guardrails will flag obvious problems. Outputs will look better, but the underlying habit won't change automatically, because this isn't really an AI problem. It's a human judgment problem in the presence of fluent machines. The lawyer didn't fail because they used AI. They failed because they assumed the output represented understanding. The student didn't fail because they asked for help. They failed because they mistook structure for reasoning. The company didn't fail because it automated a process. They failed because they assumed automation meant judgment. In every case, the mistake was the same: treating prediction like thought. And that mistake will keep repeating as long as systems keep producing the signals we associate with expertise, confidence, completeness, neutrality. AI doesn't need to be right all the time to be trusted. It just needs to look like something that would be right if a human had produced it. And that's the distinction most people miss. AI doesn't think, it predicts. And the moment you forget that, you stop checking. That's when the errors slip through.